Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today, you'd think we would have missed something in the most recent update video, but we were completely unaware and thrown away, or thrown back by the fact that it looks like 10 stars are dropping already. So they will be going over how strong the new, Flugelgard or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it's pronounced. Flugelgard weapons are post-maintenance. Yo, so editing Chrono here. Just interrupting the video for a split second. I mispronounced the name of this weapon all over the place. We're going to come up with a short way to say this, or maybe I'm just going to get used to pronunciation, but in the typical NA rumor brain that I have, anything that is possibly pronounced any other direction or anything, I completely messed it up. I can't read, guys. Cut me some slack. Apologies if it's hard to listen to in this video, but I'll get it right next time. All right, back to the video. Before we jump to that though, guys, if you're new to the channel, my name is Chrono. I'm really cover PSO2 content. Much appreciated subscribers work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into it. So with the most recent update, unfortunately, we did lose out on that beloved UQ that we had over here in McQuad lower level, or at least in this area. And it did bring back things like, what was it? Mining rig or mining defense? I always forget which one it's called, since I played so much Phantasy Star, and one was defense, one was rig, whatever. But mining rig came back, and people ran it, and then they noticed the 10 star dropped. So if we take a look at the market currently, I haven't looked at this in a little while. It's been a few. Yeah, it's been a couple of hours actually. We pop over to 10 stars, we can see that there are some 10 stars on the market. And we actually get to see things like the full potential. So we can now see what the potential is fully leveled up at level 6, meaning that if we were to go over to the Visiphone's site, it does have some accurate, up-to-date information for us. We can see that at level 6, we get 36 potency, and all allies receive a support effect for 120 seconds after using a photon blast. These support effects stack. That is absolutely bonkers. So you can get increased stacks. I thought this only stacked the duration, but it looks like if people all use this, like, you get increase, like, I don't even know what it's like. I don't even know what it is. It says it's all allies receive a support effect bonus for 120 seconds. I'm not sure if it's damage or PP or HP. I imagine it's damage more likely. I'm sure there's somewhere that's gonna, somewhere in the comments has the answer to this. If you do, feel free to toss in the comments. I'll go ahead and pin it or heart it or whatever it is to bring it up to the top. But either way, it looks like this effect does stack. So I was wrong about this, thinking that it only stacked its duration, not the effect. But it says the effect stacks. So that's super awesome. And it's 120 seconds. 2 minutes per PB is not that hard to ask for. If I remember correctly, the cooldown is either 2 minutes or like 3 minutes. It's not too much longer than this effect itself. So theoretically, you could get close to permanent uptime with really, really good play. That's actually really, really cool to consider when it comes to these weapons. But they are base damage starting at 731, maxing out at 1031. We can actually take a look at where that stacks up, which I imagine is the highest. And yeah, it looks like it is by a fairly large margin. Looks like we got an extra like 39 base damage on it max leveled. Yeah, it's a pretty sizable jump. It's kind of crazy, right? This is almost 100 difference, but this is like, yeah, that is wild how much of a difference this is here. I guess it's on the lower end, it's not as crazy, but on the higher end, it is pretty massive. So we can see the potential. That's pretty nice. But we're going to talk about how much stronger these weapons are than our current options. The Tissa, of course, as well as the Vershma. So we're going to do a direct comparison from Tissa to Flugelgard, or it's Flugelgard, excuse me, not Flugelgard, but Flugelgard, because if these are already dropping, they might not be that difficult to get a hold of. But flashbang warning, we're going to jump over to the damage calculator. Just so you're aware, it is very bright. You have been warned. So if you've never seen one of these videos, we always pull up Cakewalk's damage calculator. Super useful tool. I'll leave a link in the video description below. So I have an entire video going over how to use this. So you guys are more than welcome to check that out on the channel. It is very helpful in figuring out how you can set this up yourself. So you don't have to wait for me to make a video though. I feel like I'm getting to this fairly quickly this time around. It's only been a day since the servers went live, so cut me some slack. Anyway, as you guys can see here, we do have our add-on skills, our class combinations, and all that good stuff all listed here. One thing I do want to make sure that I set up here properly is, let's go ahead, set this to phi. Here we go. So when we're looking at weapons, we can kind of see what these weapons are capable of doing. Now, I'm kind of conflicted, because looking at this, Better only offers extra damage on downs. So setting this to Slayer, I feel like, is actually pretty fair. Though it doesn't do anything for Verse Melts. Actually, does it affect Verse Melts at all? Let's see. If I go to... No, it doesn't. Okay, cool. So this is actually fair when we look at it this perspective. When you are using a Verse Melts, you're never going to use Slayer Sub. But if you're not using a Verse Melts, you want Slayer Sub. So we're going to do this comparison with Bouncers, our main, and Slayer as our sub. Pretty standard. That way it does give the weapons we're comparing against a little bit more of an edge. The augment setup we're also using is not too far off of what I normally use. If, let's say, for example, you're like, this is way too expensive for me. For most people, High Dominant can be replaced with just your standard stat. Let's say Might in my specific situation. Speed Triple is not that difficult. And all of these can be replaced with LC augments. So you get a little bit less damage, but realistically speaking, it's still mostly the same comparison. At this point, we're not looking to see how much damage you're doing compared to me. You're looking to see how much more damage you would do compared to yourself if you're using a different weapon. So we are using Verge Melts Termina 2 for the comparison that we're looking at. If we pop over to the table, we can kind of see what we're dealing with at the moment. So this does say guessed, but we do have the confirmed amounts. So this is actually correct. We can actually take a look at, I believe it's over here. Yeah, we can take a look at this here to see. The guest portion is talking about the bonus. So we're going to ignore, we're going to disregard with buff. We're only going to take without buff. It's mostly what we're going to be concerned about, though it is worth mentioning we might be able to maintain buff 100% uptime depending upon how things go with all these new fixes that are coming out, so on and so forth. So take it with a grain of salt. Napkin math never works out to being real live, real test damage, or what's what I'm looking for in this situation. Real world testing is what I was looking for. Yeah, so it never comes out to being real world testing. Exactly, things do tend to change up, and they do tend to be a bit more nuanced. But we'll use just the base in this situation. We will disregard with buff, because with buff, unfortunately, we don't know how much that buff actually is, or haven't been able to confirm it at the very least. As you can see, if we're just looking at Termina 2 fully set up, we actually put Deft on here because, I mean, not putting Deft doesn't really make much of a difference here. Even if we went with speed, it's just more PP, which does equate to more damage in a sense, but not exactly. There's more math that goes into that we're not going to get into, but realistically speaking, it just kind of, it feels a bit more fair for the comparison overall. So if we're looking over here, we can see our Verge Melts is our baseline. And if we just take a look at Flugelgard without the buff, you can see that it's already starting out pretty substantial at almost a 5% damage increase. It's pretty solid. Even the Tissa is only about a 1% at 4%, or I'm sorry, 1.2% fix at 4% difference. This is actually pretty nice, but going for a fix is actually not that unattainable these days. So interestingly enough, because of the way that the SG Scratch has worked out for us, being able to go for fixes, granted it's going to cost you an extra of this weapon, and the fact that this weapon is starting to drop a bit more often is actually worth your time. So just looking at it baseline wise, is this weapon going to be better? Yes. Even without 100% crit, absolutely. With the buff, what we can see, we're thinking substantially based on a guess. But just baseline across the board, we're looking at a 5% damage increase. And then, I mean, when you count fixes in, it's going to get pretty crazy. You are going to want to go for Fix a Fatale when it comes to this weapon, because you're not getting any extra crit from anywhere unless that buff is crit that we don't know about. Then it's kind of crazy. But if we're looking at this perspective from, let's say, for Slayers, because Slayers have not been using Verge Melts, we can take a look at what they have been going for. Give me 1 second to move things around a little bit here real quick. Okay, let me do the comparison with a Neos A. I know this is a Termina 5 comparison. This is attainable over a long period of time. Maybe you've finally gotten lucky. Maybe you built it up on your own, who knows? Eventually, you're going to get to the point where you're able to make this if you keep pushing it. So just keep that in mind. This isn't like an unattainable thing. Again, we went with the full setup here. It's basically the exact same setup. Realistically, you're going to want to replace one of these with the new Dread key, or the new Grand Dread. And I would imagine it would probably be the Speed Trippable. Alternatively, you can also argue that Death Triple would be a better choice here. And then probably, let me think, I don't know if you'd even fit in Mastery, really. This is already 3 and 2. And Mastery 4, I don't think would be worth. I'm just going to double check really quick on some math. So yeah, in this slot, you could either go with Death Trip, which is 2.5, 2.5. You can go with Mastery, which is 2.5, 2.5. Or if you're going to go super hard and you would be going Grand Dread. I would mostly do that on your armor, not on your weapon, but I digress. That's besides the point. When we're looking at comparison-wise, as far as damage is concerned, of course, again, we're looking at Slayer, your sub-bouncer. Doesn't really affect anything. I mean, you're not getting any more crit, you're not getting any more damage. It's just giving you damage when you have a break part, so that's why you usually go sub-bouncer. It's either sub-bouncer or sub-fighter is going to be the best choices, but again, I digress. Big deal. Taking a look at the comparison, we're looking at, again, an Astrian 5, or Terminate 5 Gunblade. Baseline here, you can even see how sad the verse melts is, man. It's so much worse. I mean, even I think a baseline Astrian is actually better. Not that this is what this video is about, but it's funny to look at. You can take a look at baseline Astrian, and then verse melts is worse unless you have a Termina 3, which is insane to me. But I digress. No big deal. We're still looking at Termina 5 and taking a look at Termina 5. As you can see, even at a Termina 5, the new Flugelgard weapon is actually a 6% increase. So it's even more of an increase for Slayers, which is pretty comfortable. And as soon as you start adding in fixes, it just gets infinitely more powerful. Again, with Slayer, your best install you're going for is a Termina weapon. With everyone else, you're going to want to, basically you're locked in almost to Sub Slayer, essentially, unless you quite literally can't use Sub Slayer as part of your class combination, requires a different subclass. I'm looking at you, Gunner. I apologize. I'm sure there's other ones, but I digress. No big deal there. But when we're looking at it, everyone else is going for Fixa Fatale. So as far as how strong these new weapons are, it looks like about roughly a 5% increase over what I want to say the best in slot of every player had, but of what the high end of every player had. Because technically, I know people that have verse melts upwards of like Fixa 4, Fixa 5. Like if they were in verse melts, like, you know what, let's take a look. Just because I know there's some people out there that have these, let's just swap this over. Let's make this, yep, that's term 5, and that's fine. Let's go over here and let's swap back to Bouncer Subslayer. So let's say if you're a Termina 5 gamer, how are things looking for you? So Termina 5 gaming, Flugelgard is not a damage increase. At base, you would need to at least get a fix of some sort to get a better amount of damage. But again, that's not counting the potential that's put into this. When you count the potential in, and we know the amount of damage you're getting out of it, it's going to be absolutely nasty. So worth mentioning that, hey, that's where we're at the moment. So roughly a 5% damage increase overall. Anyway, guys, hope I don't want to make this video too long. If you have any other questions, any other concerns, maybe you guys have thought another way of using this entire setup on your own. Maybe you've gotten super lucky and you've gotten your drop early on. I've seen them pop up for between 100 mil to like 10 bill. Ain't nobody paying that amount of money for it, but 100 to 200 mil, I can foresee them selling. Hopefully more of them drop moving forward. And hopefully this is not another Tissa situation where we only ever see 1 or 2 on the market at a time. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Hopefully we'll read anything awesome in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe when you keep up with more, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace out.